to order. Our first item of business is item Q1, which is suspension of the rules allowing for remote participation. I move that due to an executive order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, staff recommends a suspension of the rules regarding in-person attendance requirements for public meetings, allowing for city council members and city staff to participate in this meeting remotely. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. If there's no discussion, let's go ahead and vote, please. I think you're muted, Dave.
Thank you. Alderman Braithwaite?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
All right, so the motion allowing a suspension of the rules for remote participation passes on a 3-0 vote. Our next item of business is approval of the minutes of the regular Administration and Public Works Committee meeting of February 22nd, 2021. Staff recommends approval of the minutes of the regular Administration and Public Works Committee of February 22nd, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, why don't we go ahead and vote?
Alderman Braithwaite?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
All right, so with that, the approval of the minutes of the regular Administration and Public Works Committee meeting of February 22nd, 2021 is passed on a 3-0 vote. Our next agenda item is public comment. There's one resident signed up for public comment. Mike Basilko, you are recognized for 3 minutes.
Probably won't take 3 minutes. So I noticed one item on the bills list, which drew my attention because it's a credit from Central Rug and Carpet for LEP violation fines in the amount of $4,000, roughly $4,000. So I'm curious why the city's finding a small company like that when the city did not, or the city found a way to manipulate the numbers and allow Bullion Andrews off scot-free on almost $500,000 penalty for the Robert Brown Center project. So since we have extra time, maybe somebody could answer the question. I'd also like to ask Peter Braithwaite why I've written several times to Sharon about the next MWEBE meeting. It was supposed to be scheduled for March 17th. That hasn't appeared on the calendar yet. So I'm wondering when that's going to take place, where these kinds of issues should be discussed. So those are my 2 questions. Happy to wait for answers. Love to hear back from Peter Braithwaite, and I'd like to know why we let one contractor off scot-free and we bill another contractor for local employment program fines.
All right, well, thank you very much. Dave, is there anybody else signed up for public comment?
Will somebody answer my question?
No one else is signed up.
Oh, public comment works, Mike. So stay tuned.
Alderman Sufferton?
Yeah.
I can at least address the issue of the meetings, Mike. The MWEBE is no different than any other city committee. All you have to do is pay attention to the calendar, and when it's noticed, that's when we meet. Thank you.
I was told it was going to be on the 17th. That's, right around the
I'm sure you're told a lot of things, Mike. I would just pay attention to our city calendar. It's no different than any other committee, all 50 plus that we have.
All right, so that concludes public comment. We'll move now to the consent calendar. If everyone could take a look and see if there's any items that they'd like to remove for discussion. I'll remove item A1 for purposes of answering the question raised by Mike Vasilko. But if anybody else has any others that they want removed for discussion, please let me know. Otherwise, we can move the consent calendar all at once. Does anybody have anything they want to pull off, or should we?
Well,
Yes, Sam.
Alderman Sufferton, I'm just wondering if the pipe issue, the lead pipe issue, I mean, it's a wonderful proposal, but I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be more public discussion on that one. I mean, I'm for voting it and pushing it through immediately, but I think there's going to be so many questions from people. I don't know if we discussed it enough. I know it was on a week ago, 2 weeks ago, with a request to suspend the rules, and then it got changed and brought back. But I don't know if people really know about this yet. I don't know if there's been much city news about it. And I know there's going to be meetings, neighborhood meetings when it's affecting a certain area, when there's construction going on. But I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't know, Dave, are you prepared to discuss it? We could pull it and have a discussion, and does that meet your objective, or is that not?
Yeah, that would be okay. I mean, I just think there should either be a staff report. Well, first of all, I don't think the people that are going to be affected are all watching tonight. So,
Right.
I don't know. I think a major distribution of this program should be made by mail. You know, I really think so,
And actually,
especially in the water bill or something.
I'll just point out, I have my letter here from Laura Biggs. My house is one of the water main improvement houses this year. So I do know that letters have gone out. But if you want to remove it for discussion, Dave, is that something you're prepared to talk about, or?
Alderman Rainey, Alderman Suffolk, can I make a suggestion that if we do it, I mean, we have a very small audience.
You're muted. Oh.
I don't want to hold it up. I'm just concerned that we make enough noise about it so that people are not surprised about it. You know how surprised people get about some of this stuff, and this is a big deal.
Yes, no, I'm supporting you, Alderman Rainey. I'm only suggesting that we can move it out of committee and pull it to city council, so we're not repeating ourselves twice to a small audience.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alderman
I mean,
Suffolk.
who's watching at 4:30?
Right. Okay, so we'll leave that on the consent calendar. So then my understanding is the only item that's been removed is the bills list for purposes of the question about central rug and carpet. Does anybody else have anything they want to take down off of the consent calendar?
We want this off the consent calendar.
Well, I think it's I'm sorry, you're right. It's item A6. Okay, so let's remove A6 and the bills list. I'm sorry, I was looking at items for discussion. All right, so I move the consent calendar with the exception of items A1 and A6. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Stoneback?
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, so with that, the consent calendar, with the exception of the removed items, passes on a 4-0 vote. So to clean all that up, I move item A1, which is approval of the City of Evanston payroll and bills list. Staff recommends City Council approval of the City of Evanston payroll for the period of February 1, 2021 through February 14, 2021 in the amount of $3,413,246, and the bills list for March 9th, 2021 in the amount of $2,585,350.20. This is for action.
Second.
All right, Dave, I don't know if you're the right person to ask. I think you heard Mr. Vasilko's question. How was it determined that Central Rug and Carpet owed, I believe it's $4,000?
I do not have a response for that, and I believe that would be something that Sharon Johnson would have to respond to. I can try to get a hold of her and have her provide an email response before the council meeting.
Okay, because I mean, this is a credit to the city, right? So we don't want to pull this off, but we do want to get the question answered.
Well, and if I can just chime in from memory, Mr. Vasilko, I know you were here. There was a full report given by Sharon Johnson regarding the ways in which Bully and Andrews attempted to meet our requirements, given that we did not have enough licensed or unionized labor here in the city of Evanston to put on the job as our LEP contract or ordinance requires. And so she listed a variety of ways in which they, did their best to, I think did field trips and a variety of things. So that was not that long ago. I think you were here for that. So I think your correlation is a little bit off base in that we are fining this company for not meeting the requirements, which I would assume meant that there were enough staff or were enough whatever local employment they needed, versus Bully and Andrews, we have a requirement that they were not able to fill because we didn't have enough unionized workers. And so as far as the report Sharon gave, it looks like they did all they could to find the union workers. We just did not have them. And so they did other things to try to meet that requirement. So, to find someone when we're asking for something that doesn't exist would not necessarily be good government. And I think one thing that we talked about was trying to increase that labor pool. So the next time we do have large projects, we do have enough staff. But I think it was Autumn Rainey who mentioned a couple of staff in particular who live here, they were working on other jobs. So we're not going to pull them off of other jobs in order to meet Bully and Andrews' requirement that we've put on them.
That's a Bully and Andrews problem. Their contract was written years ago. And if they had a problem years ago, they should have brought it up at that time before they signed a contract. So it's an obligation. It's not their contract doesn't say, well, if we can't do it, then, too bad. Their contract says what it says. The city let them.
But their contract is based on a requirement we have as a city.
That's
so
right.
We said you have to have this many staff, but we as a city cannot, create workers out of the blue thin air.
Well, then that's something they knew at the time they signed the contract.
Then you would also say something we knew when we have our LEP contracts, we have a limited amount of pool. So I'm not on the committee, so I'm not going to misspeak, but there was a very large presentation that Sharon gave, and we are, I think Alderman Braithwaite mentioned on the committee, we're trying to increase our labor pool.
Well, and Robin Louis Simmons and that committee unanimously said they would charge the full 1%. So somewhere between that meeting that I attended and others attended and heard what they said, and the fact that, a memo slips out for file that gets them off the hook, something took place behind the scenes. And, it's just one of those things that happens at Evanston.
Alderman Suffredin, I realize is it possible for me to respond to that, please?
Sure, Alderman Braithwaite, you are on the committee. You're right.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be polite. So, Mike, I think you've heard this before. You've been to the committee meeting plenty of times. Our goal in terms of what we do with MWBE is to employ Evanston residents. It is not race-based. It is residence-based. And our goal is not to find companies, but again, to provide jobs. And so I understand your angle and position on Robert Crown, but the mission of our committee is to employ people. And so whether it's Robert Crown or another job that the company's doing, I hope you would agree that it's more important to employ residents than to make a point of finding a business. And that's what the mission of our committee is. Does that make sense, Mr. Vasilko?
I have to admit, I understand what you're trying to say, but it's not an answer to the question that the LEP.
So what you're saying is it's more important.
I wasn't quite finished. The LEP is a requirement. It's not a goal. Goals if they didn't meet the MWEBE goal, that's one thing. But the local employment program requirement is a requirement. And they had years to address that. And that's money that could have been used to employ other Evanston residents as a result of the penalty, which the committee unanimously agreed to. And there were other people, I wasn't the only one there. Other people heard what was said. Robin Rue Simmons was there. She's the one who voted, started the discussion about penalizing the full 1%. And then you take another contractor, I don't know what the circumstances were, much less, less than 10% of their cost, but they get penalized. What's the point if you're not going to maintain a practice? So,
all right. Here's what I propose that we do is we move item A1 with the understanding that we will get some clarification from Sharon Johnson on the circumstances of Central Rug and Carpet and the $4,000 credit before City Council or at City Council. But I think it's in the best interest of everyone here that we move item A1 for a vote. Is there any further discussion from members of the committee? Seeing none, why don't we vote on item A1?
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Rue Simmons, Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right, so on a 4-0 vote, there's been approval of the City of Evanston payroll and bills list, item A1 on this agenda. I now move item A6, which is ordinance 14021, amending City Code Section 7-12-4-2, relating to the installation and maintenance of service pipe from tap to fixture. The city manager recommends City Council adoption of this ordinance, amending Code Section 7-12-4-2, related to installation and maintenance of service pipe from tap to fixtures. The city manager also requests suspension of the rules for introduction and action of this item at the City Council meeting on March 8th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey, do you have discussion?
No, I just want it off the consent agenda so we can have a little discussion.
Okay.
That's
Deal. All right. Well then, excellent. Why don't we take a vote?
I'm sorry, Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right. So with that, I'll also remove from the consent agenda, and it'll be noted at council. We have passed item A6 on a 4-0 vote. Next up is items for consideration. Does anybody have any of those? Seeing none, I will move on to items for discussion. And we do have one of those, which is item D1, discussion on sewer service repair costs. I move item D1, which is staff request direction from the committee related to the private sewer service repairs. At the request of City Council, staff is providing information about sewer services, the cost to repair them, and what financial assistance is available to assist property owners with the cost to complete a sewer service repair. This is for discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Been moved and seconded. Does anybody want to open up the discussion? If not, I will go ahead. So I will. All right. So this is a situation that comes up from time to time, and there's a particularly intense example recently that happened to be in the 6th Ward relating to a resident who has sewer service that is beneath Elgin Road, which is an IDOT road. It's particularly deep. It has a lot of traffic control factors based on the fact that it's under IDOT control. And so what would be a still not insignificant repair bill between $7,000 and $10,000 on a side street is looking to be a $45,000 bill for this resident. So we had asked staff to do some research and come up with some ideas about how we may be able to, one, educate residents that this is a possibility. Obviously, the time for them to know this the most would be when they are preparing to purchase a home, but two, talk about potential funding sources for ways to help mitigate this cost because it can be financially devastating. And then three, talk about perhaps ways for the city to partner with service providers to make sure that our residents not only are aware of the possibility that this could happen, but are protected and have an understanding of what the cost can be should something go wrong. Dave Alderman Rainey, you were recognized.
Can we all share our horror stories?
Sure, I have pictures of mine, but if you want to do yours orally, go for it.
Well, ours, I share a story with Cicely. Cicely has a neighbor who lives across the street from her, but Cicely lives in the 9th ward and the neighbor lives in the 8th ward. And while this is not a depth issue, it is a distance issue. This family has a house more or less in the middle of the block, but their sewer service heads down the street past 3 or 4 houses and juts around the corner to, the next street actually. And this family has spent thousands of dollars on cleaning out because they have a break or a collapse, and they've finally almost adopted the plumber guy who comes and fixes it. He feels sorry for them. They have a family member who is now in constant caregiver, and their money is being frittered away on plumbing costs. And we approached our sewer department and also Sarah Flax to see if we can't get some help in replacing the sewer. And the city looked at it, and it's of course the family's responsibility, but it's this enormous distance, and it's the way the house was built. I guess there were no other houses at the time, and they just sent this sewer line all the way down. I don't know how many hundreds of feet, but it's a long way. And I mean, the city has been wonderful. The sewer guys came out and took pictures, and everybody's taken pictures of it. And it goes along okay for a while, and then everything backs up. And at one time they had to actually vacate the house because of a backup. And I mean, what has to happen sooner or later is this sewer pipe has to be replaced. And there's no way this family can afford it. And so this is a case for this proposal here, this item for discussion. And it's been horrible. Right, Cicely? Alderman Fleming?
Okay, Alderman Fleming? Yeah.
I have a question, Dave, in looking at the materials, because you mentioned people doing this when they buy a house, but as Alderman Rainey mentioned, this one family's been in the house, forever.
Yeah, forever.
And even part of my question, Dave, would be for you, and maybe I don't know what city staff, but when people purchase homes in Evanston, I think they don't really necessarily get involved with the city until they pay their transfer tax and their water. Is there a way we can make that kind of recommendation for when people do buy a house, they, have the sewer line inspected, or even for us to look at outside of this program? I don't even know if this is something that's covered by, I assume not, but like a home insurance policy where people can have, because these are huge costs that people, even if you get your house inspected, 10 years down, we have all these beautiful parkway trees, but they eat away at your sewer line a lot of times, that we could just do a better job communicating, this program or whatever program, but also some advice. I know we don't want to have liability, but some FYI or, FAQs or whatever for residents regarding this kind of thing. Because I think residents don't even know that this is their responsibility until they have the sewer backing up in their house. And a lot of times then, they don't know what to do about it. They assume it's, it's somehow or another we can help them and we often cannot.
And good evening, Dave Stoneback, Public Works Director. We can advertise this any way that the aldermen feel is the most appropriate to do. I'm not opposed to that and would highly encourage new property owners to make sure their sewer is, inspected, make sure they know where their water service is, make sure they understand what type of pipe is used for the water service. Yes, these are things that a lot of residents don't consider when they purchase a home. And I'm not sure what is the appropriate way to make people aware of that, because a lot of times it may not be one person from Evanston moving to a different house in Evanston. It's going to be somebody moving into Evanston, and I don't know how to reach that person.
Maybe that's something we can do through the clerk's office. I hate to, when they get whenever you do your transfer stamp, right? Maybe that's triggers us to send out some kind of information to them about a variety of different things, right? Because I had recently during the snowstorm, someone just had always parked in a private garage, couldn't make it because of us not plowing the garage, the alley, but had no idea about lots of, requirements for street parking because they never use it. So, that's another discussion, but a way we can reach to new residents to give them lots of information about Evanston, this being one of those pieces. But also, I would love to just know if this is something that is ever covered under a home insurance plan or, an additional rider for your home insurance that people might consider getting given the age of our pipes.
Actually, brokers should know about this. We should.
But that could be something we could not that we would tell them to get it, but we could recommend that they might want to look into it given the age of the pipes and that the pipes are their responsibility.
It is my understanding that different insurance companies offer different types of insurance. So I am familiar of an insurance company that for, I think it's only $40 a year, will provide insurance on your water and sewer service.
Wow.
There are different companies that make a living from selling insurance for water and sewer repairs, but they're all a little bit different. You have to read the very fine print because if it's an existing condition, which if there's a crack in your sewer pipe, they might say it's an existing condition and therefore they don't have to pay. So, and there's some companies that want to join with the city of Evanston. They want to be the insurance company that sells this type of insurance with the city of Evanston backing. And I'm always hesitant to do that as well, because then I feel if the insurance company doesn't perform the service that's expected, the resident may say, well, I bought this because the city of Evanston recommended them, and now I want the city of Evanston to take care of it. So I think buying insurance is totally at the discretion of the property owner, and for them to do their own. I agree that perhaps we get out to the realtors and ask them, encourage them to highly recommend, that these things take place. I'm not sure how receptive they would be because they want to sell homes and, I have to wait to get my sewer line inspected. It's a real challenge. We're dealing with an alley that's privately owned, and the city is considering purchasing it. But a house on that alley recently sold, and the new homeowner knew nothing about it, and yet all the residents that live up and down that block know all about it, and yet somehow the seller didn't inform the person that was buying the house, the neighbors didn't inform. So I'm struggling, and I would, given direction, I would do whatever the city council recommends on how we get this word out, and I'm just not sure what is effective, but I'm willing to do whatever the Alderman Committee thinks is the best thing to move forward with.
Does anybody else have anything? If not, I want to jump in with a question. And this relates, so the city doesn't really have any contact with the home purchaser at all, right? The transfer stamps are from the seller. I mean, we maybe do a welcome packet, but it's too late at that point if somebody hasn't had their line scoped, right? I mean, we're just telling them, heads up, you've possibly got a problem. And so moving from like home purchasers to existing homeowners, is there a way, and Dave, this might be asking a question that you can't answer, but how much of the cost could be saved if when we're doing road resurfacing, we let people know that this is maybe a time to have an inspection done, and if you have a possible problem, that you could get this work done at something of a discount because the cost of going to the road would be less. Is that something that we could coordinate with existing homeowners? Or does that create all sorts of other unintended problems that I'm not thinking of?
No, that could be something that we include in. I think that you received our letter advising you of upcoming work on your street, and that would be something that we could put in that letter that now would be the appropriate time to have your sewer service checked and if necessary repaired, and it would mitigate the cost of patching the street because we could do that as part of the resurfacing project.
Okay, and in addition to the advantage to the homeowner, I assume there's a public policy goal to be advanced there because we won't have newly resurfaced streets dug into on a regular basis. I don't know how much trouble that creates. So I wonder if that's something we could look at. And this isn't exactly apples to apples, but I had a car once that had the battery underneath the driver's seat, and I was advised that there's no point in ever checking the battery because the cost of labor to take the seat out and look at the battery was a lot more than the cost of the battery. So if they're going to look at it, they may as well just replace it. And it sounds like this is a similar situation, and there'd probably be some homeowners who may not have any indication that they have a problem, but sure would like to be able to know that the clock is starting from now rather than whenever this was started. And it may also be something for people who are considering selling in the next 5 to 10 years to be able to demonstrate to potential purchasers that this issue has been inspected and addressed, and more than just with a camera, but with an actual replacement. So, I mean, from a logistical standpoint, can the city do that? I mean, you're right, I do have this letter. Does it create a lot of extra staff work and burden to let residents know? Is there a way that we could do it so it doesn't interfere with construction timetables? Because I would imagine that adds an extra layer of uncertainty. But if we give people enough advance notice, I mean, do you think there's a way that system could run smoothly?
We could maybe get that notice out earlier. It's something that we wouldn't want to send out until after the city council has approved the budget. So it's November, December, till we have the approved budget for the next year. And then we have some certainty of which streets are actually going to be worked on, and we could send the letter out. At that time, hopefully they could have their sewer line inspected over the winter, and if they find an issue, have the repair made early in the spring so that it doesn't interfere with the construction work.
Okay, and I understand the hesitance to partner with insurance companies because of the fine print issue, but do you think there's an opportunity for the city to partner with plumbers to provide the scoping service, and perhaps the city could realize some revenue by having a list of not even preferred contractors, just contractors that we would put in these notices, and we could get some revenue from plumbers who are on the list, and we make it clear that we're not recommending anybody in particular, but these people are have paid the city to be included in this notice. I mean, is there a way you think there's a chance the city could also see some revenue there while achieving the objectives of having people's sewer lines inspected and repaired?
That's above my pay grade to give you an answer on that. That's something that I would have to check with legal on to whether or not that is something that the city would want to endeavor into.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now, I won't put Nick on the spot. He's just here for parliamentary things, but I'll follow up with the law department. Is there anybody else who has anything that they want to add on this topic? If not, I'll just close by saying I appreciate the work. Having heard, this most recent situation on Elgin Road, and having heard from others who have been surprised even when they have their bills are on the lower end. I mean, I think just having residents aware that this is something that exists in their sphere of potential responsibility is an important improvement over how things are now. And I think to your point, people who are moving from other places, it may not occur to them at all. So anything we can do to educate residents about this potential liability that is out there, I think would be a good thing to do. So with that, I will close out our items of discussion, and I think we can move on to a motion to adjourn. Is there?
So move.
Second.
All right. In that case, I skipped items for communication. I apologize. I communicate that we are entertaining a motion to adjourn, which has been moved and seconded. And then I believe that we can do a roll call vote on that, and our city council meeting is scheduled for 5:30.
Yes.
All right. So, Mr. Stoneback, please take it away.
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
All right. Well, thank you. The Administration Public Works Committee is adjourned. We will have City Council begin at 5:30. Unless I'm wrong, is it posted for 5 or is it posted for 5:30?
5:30.
Okay, 5:30, City Council. Thanks, everybody.